There is a big lie that we are taught in the press, which is that education is the same thing as intelligence.
So today I'm going on Michael Malice's show for, I think it's called Compound Media, I could be wrong. He's the unofficial biographer for, I should say he wrote an unofficial biography of Kim Jong-il, I believe. He's an author of many, many books, and he's got a talk show. So I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I was referred, we spoke, and he said come on the show, and that's what I'm going to do. And if you're familiar with him, I'm going to go over to his studio, and we'll have a conversation. We must not be in the best timeline, but whatever you want to think, however you want to feel, we're in the future where armored police with rifles are protecting us. This shit happens. So we're in the studio. This is Michael.
Hi.
And we're gonna go on and talk about a bunch of stuff. I know you want to talk about like innovation.
We're going to talk about the no-go zones. We're going to talk
yeah.
about Occupy, and we're going to talk about the New Right, which are 3 areas where you covered and you were immersive.
Cool. Perfect. Sounds good.
And kids, stay in school and stay off the pipe.
I'm actually, depends on the school. I'm not a big college fan, but anyway, we'll be back in a second, and then we'll talk for my channel after I talk for your channel.
Sure.
So, we just finished the show. That was 1 hour long.
It was.
Oh, wow. It was great. Time flew because I felt like, you know, we had so much to talk about. But one thing that really stood out that I think, it's something that I've never made a video about, is college. Why I don't like school. And you were talking about your experience with school.
Yeah.
So, I think I'll just, right off the bat, actually, the first thing, let's have you introduce yourself and describe yourself however you want to describe yourself.
I'm Michael Malice. I'm a columnist, author. Some might call me the little engine that could but shouldn't.
All right. You had an anecdote about school and how you feel about it. So I just want to ask you quickly, I suppose, and because we'll move on to like social justice activism and campus and stuff. But what's your take on school and college and all that stuff?
The only point of college is to networking. You're going to meet people who are important later in your life, but also to get a piece of paper that will get you a good job. You're not there to learn anything, and these people are the enemy.
They're the enemy.
The enemy, yes.
So why are they the enemy?
Because these are people who can't compete in the marketplace of ideas, those who can do, those who can't teach. They are there to kind of assert their power over young, impressionable minds. If your claim to intelligence is that you're smarter than a sophomore, which is, you know, Latin for someone, or whatever language that is, for someone's not very bright, I guess I'm being ironic here, that's not very much of a credential at all. So I have very little respect for these educators, and they're all, personality-wise, very full of themselves, very aggressive and very hostile and thin-skinned.
So, I have a similar opinion. I mean, when people ask me about college, I say, in my opinion, go to school if you want to be a lawyer because you need to. If you want to be a doctor, or if you actually want to work in academia. But for the most part, you know, if you want to work in music business, if you want to be a musician, like go do those things.
I wish I had the courage that so many younger people today do of not going to college. Like I had a full ride, so I didn't have to leave with all that debt.
Wow. Yeah.
But the people who have the balls to not go to school and make something of themselves, I could not be their bigger fan or the bigger cheerleader. There is a big lie that we are taught in the press, which is that education is the same thing as intelligence. And this happens in cities because in cities the intelligent people tend to be educated because of the school systems. But in rural areas you have very many uneducated but very intelligent people. So this is a big myth no, I think it's a lie. It's something that's being spread purposefully so that someone who has a degree can say, look, I've got a degree, you don't, therefore the odds are my argument's better than yours, and that's false.
There's the quote, and I think it's Samuel Clemens, I could be wrong, where he said, I never let schooling get in the way of my education.
Yeah.
The idea that school gets in the way of your education.
Yeah, I've never taken an English course, never took a communications course. I was a business major, and I'm doing fairly well for myself in the field that I work in. So this is not a function. What school gave me is I graduated college and I could get a good job, and that gave me the financial space to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. But other than that,
I don't know. Personally, I don't think that college will get you a good job. I think it's just that, I mean, there's so many people I know who have college degrees who can't get jobs, and that's like a meme at this point, where we see these comics where young people make jokes about how college is a waste of time. So we'll move on a little bit. So now you've mentioned these people can't compete in the marketplace of ideas.
Yeah.
We hear a lot about these like college campuses, SJWs, people will refer to them as. I know it's like a derogatory thing, I guess.
Sure.
But yeah, what's your take on this? How is this related? It seems like it's derivative of what you just said.
Well, I talk about this in my forthcoming book, that progressivism is is Christianity without the mythology. So basically what college campuses are they're a chance for, and I'm speaking specifically about the social sciences, not about the hard sciences or engineering or things like that. It's their opportunity to proselytize to young people and turn them into the shock troops for the progressive militia. And to I made this point on Rubin. You have a 17-year-old girl, she goes to school and she's leaving as a swamp walrus with danger hair 4 years later. And this is not an accident, and this is by design. And this has been by design since the early 1900s. There's a book called Illiberal Reformers, and the author talks about how this all came over from Germany, and the idea was to have colleges be a place to manufacture the elite that are going to govern and control the entire country. So this has been their plan. People think it's a recent phenomenon. It's been going on for over 100 years.
So wait, so these progressive activists, you're saying the intent is to make them world leaders?
The intent of the college system was that we're going to manufacture the next generation's elite, and that elite, especially in the progressive era, the idea is we're the ones who are going to be managing every aspect of the country, including the economy and the culture.
It doesn't seem like a lot of people have a grasp on these issues. And I don't mean that to be derogatory, offensive. I mean, these people who are taking classes like gender studies and like women's studies, they're not studying the economy, they're not studying conflict, foreign policy.
And Camille Paglia talks about this very often. The idea that you could have women's studies without studying biology is, even if you're going to say that the biology is wrong, is demented.
So where do you think this is going to go? We've seen like Evergreen, I believe that's the name of the school up in Washington, where the Brett Weinstein, was that his name?
I believe so, yes.
He got chased out, they smashed windows. We see the Berkeley stuff, we see Gainesville. What's your prediction for how this
I think it's going in a very good direction, because if you saw what happened in Ferguson, which led to the huge backlash against the left, because regardless of whether the truth of what side, when you have people on TV saying it's good that this is happening, people at home are going to rebel against that, because no one wants civil unrest no matter what side you're on. And when you have things like Berkeley, when Milo goes to speak, and you can think whatever you want of him, and the school's being burned down, even animals know to flee fire. So if you have someone on television telling you it's a good thing that there's a fire, you don't have to have any ideology just to know, whatever this is, I'm against it.
You want to hear a really crazy story, and I'll tell this for everyone here too. During Ferguson, in the Ferguson Rights, I was there on the ground. The store where Michael Brown was accused of robbing, whatever your stance is, I don't want to get into that. A group of young men from the community linked arms to protect that store. And a guy I know from Al Jazeera, he went and interviewed one of these young men, said, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And this young man told us, this store is part of our community. We don't want to see it damaged. Yeah. These guys who are looting don't live here. They're taking advantage of us. And you know what we see from the progressive activists? There was one story titled In Defense of Looting. And a lot of these progressives said, the looting is an act of rebellion against the system that oppresses them, completely oblivious to the fact that the community was trying to stop the looting. It blew my mind that they would defend the looting of businesses, the destruction of the community, while that community was struggling to defend it.
Well, I mean, my point as an anarchist myself is that I regard the estate tax as looting. When you die and the government comes in and takes half your stuff, that's just very civilized looting. So whatever's going on in Ferguson is a small amount compared to now the police have taken more through asset forfeiture than the total of robbery. This is something where even if you're not convicted of a crime, they get to keep your stuff because it's been suspected. How is that not looting?
Do you want to give us a quick rundown of asset forfeiture, just like a basic
Well,
definition?
basically, I'm not a lawyer, but the point is, if you're accused of, this goes back to the Middle Ages, where if a sword was used to kill someone, that sword could be found guilty, right? So now it's like if you are accused of using, when they expanded the drug war, it's like if something was used in service of selling drugs, that asset was basically could be forfeited by the police. So they could seize your house, they can seize your car, you know, your bank account, whatever, because this, even if you are not convicted, many times you're gonna have to fight to get it back, if you get it back at all.
There was a sort of tie in the greater picture to the smaller one. There's a quote I saw posted earlier today that said something like, does the scale determine morality? If it is wrong to steal on an individual level,
right,
is it correct to steal on a governmental level?
Right.
Look, I'm not an anarchist. I was when I was younger, and I've come to be more of a, I guess what people call classic liberal. I actually do think government works and needs to exist in certain areas, but it's more complicated than just to say left, right, up, down, whatever. Sure. I think it's to ultimately I kind of feel like, you know, look, my opinion on how the government should or should not be is totally irrelevant. The discussion is what's important. And your opinion should be in the discussion, and everyone else's opinion, that we should have a discussion about it, and then we should find out what works and then implement it.
I'm not interested in discussion. I'm interested in maintaining my stuff and my life. So if you are saying that there's going to be discussion over my property because you think I'm suspected of putting drugs in my body, I'm not interested in talking to you any further, officer. No, but
well,
I mean,
I agree with
yeah.
you. Right. So, you know, one of the other memes, like memes, is that I'm a center-left libertarian, right? So I believe there are some instances where we have to come together and say we need a mutual agreement between the communities on how we operate.
Sure,
and
I agree with that.
And then in most instances, I'm like, yeah, if you build, you know, if you whittle a little boat out of wood, that's yours.
Of course.
No one has a right to take it.
Right.
So, all right, final question. Coming from the colleges, these kids, you say things are moving in a good direction. You talked a little bit about government looting.
And let me say why I think they're going in a good direction, because I think Americans, just like with the press, with the Hollywood, and with the government, they have increasing suspicion and not disdain, and that's finally happening with regards to universities. Because back in the day, my son's the first one to go to college, my daughter's a college graduate, was a source of pride, and this was an aspirational thing, especially for immigrants, and now decreasingly that's the case. People are like, wait a minute, these schools are turning my children into monsters.
Yeah, I mean, man, we hear some stories.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too much into that, but I've seen some stories about more moderate parents and their kids kind of,
yeah,
you know, go, whoo.
Just like joining any other cult.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah, I don't. Okay, we'll leave it here.
Okay.
Thanks for talking. I don't want to go on for a million years. Look, you want to get me started on colleges, because I didn't go to college. I never finished high school. I will go off, but I'll save more of the discussion about this stuff for a later date. I don't want on too long, but thanks for
so
talking.
much, Tim.
Thanks for having me on the show, and thanks for doing the interview with me.
It's an honor.
And yeah, all right, let's get out of here. All right, well, I was planning on filming a little bit more, but I guess that about wraps it up. I gotta get home and I gotta do a bunch more work. So thanks for hanging out, listening to the discussion with Michael Malice. Wish we could have gone a little bit longer, but I try to keep YouTube videos. I don't want to run on, you know. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. So thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter at Timcast. If you want to support my work, go to timcast.com/donate. Give whatever you'd like, give nothing at all. My videos are always free and available. And stay tuned, new videos every day at 4 p.m. Breaking news and live streams from around the world. And I'll see you tomorrow.